Welcome to Brilliant Minds Unlocked. Today we are undertaking a deep dive into, well, maybe humanity's oldest, most fundamental aspiration, the quest to conquer death. For most of history, this was really the stuff of mythology, maybe philosophy, or the occasional eccentric alchemist.
But the sources we're looking at today show this really radical modern shift. We're definitely not talking about ancient whispers anymore. This is 21st century science. And it's being fueled by, frankly, some of the largest pools of private capital in history. The whole pursuit of radical longevity. It's moved out of fiction and straight into the high-tech lab.
Absolutely. And the conversations have been completely reframed, hasn't it, by these visionaries, often from Silicon Valley. They tend to view aging not as, some inevitable natural process, but more like an engineering problem.
Or a disease, a really complex chronic disease that they believe can and maybe should be cured. And that's really our mission for you today. To help you understand how this extreme wealth, combined with this disruptive tech mindset, is funding what's essentially a scientific assault on human decay. We're going to dig into who's leading the charge, what kind of, frankly, mind-bending science they're pushing forward, and, crucially, what the world might look like if they actually, succeed.
Yeah, it's vital to get informed on this convergence of tech and biology. The stakes are, well, literally life and death.
Couldn't be higher.
So let's start with the who and the why. The money, the philosophy behind it all, these apostles of longevity, as some call them. These are often the key figures who, first transformed our digital world, and now they seem to see the human body as the next big system that's ripe for disruption and optimization.
Yeah, and you really can't talk about this without starting with Calico, the California Life Company. When Google founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin backed this back in 2013, wow, that was a watershed moment. It wasn't just the money, though, that was huge. It instantly gave the entire field of longevity research this massive legitimacy boost.
Right. It was like a signal, wasn't it? That curing aging wasn't just some fringe hobby for rich eccentrics anymore. Suddenly, it was a serious institutional goal, backed by Google's, well, almost limitless resources. Now, the sources do point out that Calico operates pretty secretively, almost like a stealth startup, highly guarded. But its core mission is, on the surface, quite simple. Increase our understanding of the biology that controls lifespan.
And that secrecy is probably strategic, right?
Yeah.
By being this sort of black box. But with Google's name attached, they could attract top scientific talent, people from academia, researchers who maybe wouldn't have risked their careers or reputations on something considered so radical before. Calico basically funneled world-class expertise right into studying the core mechanisms of aging.
Okay, so that's the big corporate, maybe slightly stealthy approach. But then you have someone like Thiel. He seems to move from corporate stealth to just outright philosophical commitment.
Oh, absolutely. Thiel is probably the most explicit about his stance. He famously said, "I'm against death." Simple as that. And his funding, it's really deeply tied to one particular school of thought, the SCNS Research Foundation.
SCNS. That's Aubrey de Grey's group, right?
That's the one, led by the biogerontologist Aubrey de Grey. And their approach, it completely rejects the idea of just slowing down aging. That's not the goal. Instead, they champion this idea that aging is fundamentally just the accumulation of different kinds of damage on a molecular level, a cellular level.
Damage like, what are we talking about? Misfolded proteins,
Yeah.
junk building up, cells mutating.
Exactly that kind of thing. SCNS identifies, I think, 7 distinct categories of this age-related damage. Junk inside cells, junk outside cells, cell loss, mutations, etc. So their philosophy isn't about slowing down the decay of the biological machine. It's about engineered repair.
Like maintaining an old car.
Precisely. The analogy they often use is a classic car. If you periodically go in, remove all the rust, replace worn-out parts, fix the engine, you can keep it running pretty much indefinitely. Thiel's money is basically a massive bet on this purely engineering path to, well, potentially biological immortality.
That really clarifies the philosophical split. Thiel's about repair. What about, say, Jeff Bezos? His investments, like in Unity Biotechnology, seem more focused.
Yeah, Bezos represents a shift towards a more targeted attack, a therapeutic attack on one specific driver of aging. These things called senescent cells.
Ah, the zombie cells. That's a great name, but why are they actually dangerous? What do they do?
Well, there's cells that have basically stopped dividing, they've reached their limit, but crucially, they refuse to die off like they're supposed to. So like biological zombies, they just hang around. And while they're hanging around, they spew out this constant stream of inflammatory signals, toxic molecules. Yeah, then damages the healthy tissues around them. This process contributes to a whole host of age-related diseases, arthritis, heart disease, dementia.
So Unity's goal is to basically develop ways to just clear out these zombie cells systematically.
Correct. They're developing drugs called senolytics. The idea is these drugs would selectively trigger cell death, apoptosis, only in those harmful senescent cells. It's about cleaning up the body's internal environment. Very practical, very targeted application of longevity science.
Okay. And then there's Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, their Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative, CZI. Their ambition seems the most sweeping, maybe. Cure, prevent, or manage all disease by the end of the century.
It is incredibly ambitious. And while they might not explicitly frame it as immortality, their work is undeniably foundational to the whole longevity quest.
How so?
Because their investment really prioritizes basic science. Building the fundamental tools and knowledge base that everyone needs to understand human biology at its core. Take their work on the Cell Atlas, for instance. That's this huge project trying to create a comprehensive map of literally every single cell type in the human body.
Wow.
Yeah, detailing how they function, where they are located, how they interact with each other.
It's like that old saying, you can't fix the engine if you don't have the blueprint.
Exactly. You need the map before you can fix the bugs. That foundational knowledge they're building is absolutely essential if you ever hope to understand and ultimately control the processes of aging, decay, and disease.
Okay, so let's unpack the how. This scientific assault, funded by all these billions, what are the actual battlefronts? It's clearly not just one single cure they're after.
No, definitely not. It's more like a multi-pronged campaign. And I'd say there are maybe 4 revolutionary fronts that have been dramatically accelerated by all this private wealth. The first is what you could call the genetic frontier. This is really built on the paradigm shift that aging isn't just random decay, it's influenced by specific genetic pathways, and crucially pathways that might be malleable.
Okay, and I know they focus on specific mechanisms within the cell. Can you clarify the main targets? What are these labs really obsessed with?
Sure. They're zooming in on key cellular regulators. We're talking about things like telomeres, those protective caps on in ends of our chromosomes that shorten with age. Right. Then there are the sirtuin proteins. They got a lot of attention because they seem linked to the health benefits of calorie restriction. And perhaps most importantly, there's the MTOR pathway. It's a nutrient sensing pathway.
MTR?
Yeah.
That sounds critical. What does it actually do?
Think of it as the cell's master switch for abundance. When MTOR senses lots of nutrients, plenty of food available, it tells the cell, okay, conditions are good, grow, reproduce. But when nutrients are scarce, MTOR activity goes down, and the cell shifts gears into a kind of survival mode. Maintenance, repair, recycling cellular components.
So the longevity researchers are trying to sort of trick the body.
Kind of, yeah. They're looking for ways to suppress MTOR activity even when someone is eating normally, to trick the cells into staying in that optimized repair state for longer.
That's fascinating. And the senolytic, as you mentioned earlier, the zombie cell killers, they fit under this genetic frontier too.
They do. It's all about intervening at the cellular or genetic level. We're also seeing huge investment in gene therapies. Things like trying to deliver the genetic instructions for the enzyme telomerase, which can rebuild those telomere caps, potentially rejuvenating tissues.
Okay, so that's front number one. The second one you mentioned is, well, this is the one I find truly mind-bending. Cellular reprogramming. Winding back the clock on a cell.
It is mind-bending. This research really took off thanks to Shinya Yamanaka. He discovered you could use just 4 specific proteins, transcription factors, they're called the Yamanaka factors, to take an adult specialized cell, like a skin cell, and revert it completely back to a youthful, pluripotent stem cell state, like hitting the reset button, turning an old cell into a biological blank slate.
The potential seems enormous. But applying that to a whole person, doesn't that risk just creating, I don't know, tumors? Or losing all specialized function?
That's the huge challenge, absolutely. Turning everything back to an embryonic state would be catastrophic, which is why the cutting edge now is focused on partial reprogramming.
Partial reprogramming?
Yeah, that's the real innovation here. They aren't trying to erase the cell's identity completely. The goal is more subtle. It's about giving the cell a kind of youthful shock, They want to transiently expose cells to those Yamanaka factors just for a short period, long enough to reset the epigenetic clock.
The epigenetic clock,
Yeah.
those chemical tags on DNA that track age.
Exactly. Reset those markers of aging without pushing the cell so far back that it becomes cancerous or loses its specialized function, like being a heart cell or a neuron. It's aiming for a precise, targeted rewind, not a total factory reset.
Okay, incredibly complex. What's the third front? You mentioned the Silicon Valley ethos.
Right, the data-driven body. This is where you really see the tech mindset applied directly to biology. It's basically treating death as a flaw in the system's code.
Like a bug to be debugged.
That's the metaphor, yeah. For many of these tech optimists, the human body is just incredibly complex biological hardware running on, vast amounts of information encoded in DNA, proteins, etc. From this perspective, aging and death are just bugs. Problems in the code that can eventually be understood and fixed using informatics. You see this reflected in the whole quantified self movement too, right? People meticulously tracking dozens of their own biomarkers, blood glucose, sleep patterns, inflammation level.
Trying to find patterns, predict problems.
Exactly. Searching for correlations, trying to optimize their own system. And on a much grander scale, AI is the key tool here.
How is AI being used specifically?
Well, AI algorithms are being unleashed on massive biological data sets, genomic data, proteomic data, clinical trial results at a scale no human team could possibly manage. They're looking for those subtle patterns, hidden interactions, complex pathways that contribute to aging and disease. Viewing the whole thing as this incredibly complex informatics problem that can be modeled, predicted, and ultimately corrected.
Data as the key to unlocking longevity.
Okay.
And the fourth front. This sounds like the most out there.
It is, for many people. This is the mind upload and cryonics contingent. It's about ultimate transcendence, really.
Moving beyond biology altogether.
That's the core idea. This group, heavily influenced by futurists like Ray Kurzweil, fundamentally sees the biological body as, temporary, as disposable hardware. For them, the true self isn't the meat, it's the information pattern, it's consciousness. And the ultimate goal is to survive long enough, perhaps through cryonics if necessary, to achieve digital immortality.
And that brings us to the singularity idea, right?
Yeah.
Kurzweil's prediction for around 2045.
That's the linchpin. The singularity is that hypothetical point where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. The thinking is, once AI is powerful enough, it could theoretically map and understand the human brain, completely reverse engineer consciousness itself. And if you can understand the operating system of the self, maybe you can copy it, upload it, transfer consciousness into a digital realm or a more durable synthetic body, escaping biological limitations forever.
Wow, okay. That really covers the how. But this is where, for me, it gets incredibly interesting and maybe a bit scary. Because if any of these approaches actually succeed, even partially, the impact would be seismic. It forces us to confront some profound questions. What are the two sides of this coin?
Well, on the utopian side, the promise is almost beyond measure, isn't it? Imagine eliminating the immense suffering caused by age-related diseases. Alzheimer's, gone. Heart disease, a thing of the past. Most cancers, preventable or easily manageable. The goal isn't just longer life, it's health span, matching lifespan.
Meaning you could live for, say, centuries, but maintain the health and vitality of your younger self.
That's the dream. And think about the societal benefits the proponents point to. The cumulative knowledge and wisdom. Imagine a scientist working productively for 300 years, or an artist or a historian. The potential acceleration of human progress. It's staggering to contemplate.
It really is. That's the bright side. But the flip side, the sources raise some pretty stark warnings.
They do. And perhaps the most immediate, most visceral concern is the inequality abyss. If these radical life extension therapies are incredibly complex and expensive, especially at first, who gets access?
The ultra-rich.
Almost certainly. Which could create this unprecedented, potentially irreversible social divide. The ultimate form of inequality. You'd have the mortals, still subject to the natural cycles of aging and death, living alongside the immortals, the wealthy elite who can afford to continuously repair and rejuvenate themselves, accumulating power and influence across centuries.
That's a chilling thought, an unbridgeable gap.
And it's not just about wealth inequality. Critics also worry deeply about stagnation and ossification. Think about it. Death, as grim as it sounds, is a powerful engine for renewal in society. It clears the way for new ideas, new generations, new leadership.
So a world run by potentially millennial-old billionaires might become stuck.
Profoundly conservative, potentially. resistant to change, locking out younger generations from positions of influence, entrenching old power structures indefinitely. Innovation could slow down dramatically.
And then there's the sheer practical problem, the resource nightmare.
Yeah, you can't ignore the planetary impact. If death rates plummet globally, but birth rates don't follow suit, the strain on resources would be unimaginable. Food, water, energy, housing, everything. It could lead to catastrophic shortages, extreme rationing, maybe even severe restrictions on reproduction. Profound social instability seems almost inevitable.
It really forces you back to these deep philosophical questions, doesn't it?
If we can technologically defeat aging, it challenges literally every economic, legal, and ethical system we've built around the assumption of a finite human lifespan.
So the core question becomes, if a cure for aging is discovered, what is it? Is it a product to be bought and sold on the market? Or is it somehow a fundamental human right that should be accessible to everyone?
That question cuts right to the heart of our values. It challenges capitalism, ethics, everything.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? These biotech billionaires, they really are like modern Promethean figures, aren't they? They've taken this ancient dream of eternal life out of myth and religion, dragged it firmly into the laboratory, and reframed it as an engineering challenge they genuinely believe is solvable.
Absolutely. Their quest is fueled by this potent mix, almost unbelievable wealth, and this deep conviction, this optimism that death is ultimately just a technical problem, a bug to be fixed. And as we've discussed, this leads to both unimaginable promise, ending vast amounts of suffering, but also to unprecedented peril, the risk of creating a deeply unequal and potentially stagnant future.
It leaves us, and you listening, with that ultimate question hanging in the air. The knowledge we've explored today makes it unavoidable. Just because we can figure out how to live forever or vastly longer, does it actually mean we should? And the answer we eventually come to won't just determine the lengths of our individual lives, it might very well determine the future soul, the very structure of our species.